First up, I have My Undesirable Friend, Part 1, Last Air in Moscow, directed by Julia Lotev. And this is, I believe, on MUBI or about to drop on MUBI. MUBI is doing a great job these days. I have Criterion Channel, but sometimes I think MUBI is the channel I should have because I feel like MUBI is like the more daring cousin of Criterion. They still get a lot of art house, weird and interesting movies, but they don't quite feel the need to be, I guess I won't say that Criterion movies are safe per se, but I think they're a little more respectable per se. And MUBI kind of can just go any direction they want to go, which I do appreciate. And they produce some great stuff. In fact, I think The Substance is a MUBI-produced film, and MUBI has a lot of great stuff on the channel. So that's just my unpaid plug for MUBI, which I do not have the service. So if we get a screener now and then from a MUBI film or something that MUBI is carrying, I appreciate that, and it's because they have a lot of good content. Okay, that being said, My Undesirable Friend, I'm going to call it that for now, is a documentary. I think it's best viewed as a documentary miniseries in 5 episodes. Now, it isn't in 5 episodes. I guess it's shown in a few theaters in its full length, which I said, once again, is about, I want to say it's about 5.5 hours long total. Like I said, 5 chapters. So if you think of it as like 5 one-hour episodes approximately, I think that's a better way to consider what My Undesirable Friend is. It takes place mostly from the fall of 21 through the winter, early spring of 2022. And it's almost fully following a group of about 7 or 8 women, mostly. There's a few men in there, but mostly women, young women mostly as well. I think there's one main woman we're watching, which is probably middle-aged. Everyone else is probably in their 20s. And they all work or are associated with this last independent news source in Moscow at the time that some of the crackdown is occurring and pre and post beginning of Ukraine war. And the channel's called TV Rain. And at the time, I think they'd been going on for years, 15 years, 20 years, I forget how long, quite a while. But a lot of these women had seen TV Rain when they were kids, and they got interested in journalism, and their dream was to become part of TV Rain because TV Rain was seen as this non-state sponsored source of news and source of alternative news to the basically propaganda being pushed out on almost every other channel. There had been other sources, but most of them had all died or been pushed out of business by the time this documentary starts, and they get into that as well. Now, Bruce, why is this so long? Well, this is the plus and minus of the show. If you want your documentaries to get to the point, to be really quick, have direct information, and really just deal with the facts, just the facts of thing, then this documentary is not for you. Now, if you want something where it's much more exhaustive and much more willing to just sit with the different people that we meet and really get to know their lives and what makes them tick along with the issues at hand, then this documentary will work for you. If you're like me and when you were like a teenager, you purposely sought out and watched the entire documentary Showa, which I think was about, 10 or 12 hours long, then you're probably the kind of person that could dive into this documentary and enjoy it. And I am one of those people, as I just said, so I did really enjoy this documentary. I think if you can give yourself the time and really get into the lives of these different people, obviously you start to understand their personal stakes and their personal motivations and where each of these different women come from, so that the issues around them that are affecting them and that are affecting Russia in general will have a bigger impact for you. Now, what is the basic situation here? When we start the first chapter, I'm going to list the chapter names for you just so you know what the idea. The first chapter is The Lives of Foreign Agents. What does that mean? Foreign agents. It's a big key to this. The second chapter is The Town Crazies. The third chapter is The Holiday Special. The fourth chapter is The Expected Impossible. And the fifth chapter is Don't Say War. Now, if you want to think of it how it's basically divided up, so the first 3 chapters are leading up to the new year in 2021. And the last 2 chapters are basically from the beginning to several days after the start of the Ukraine war. So you get to see the worry and the buildup and the the crackdown on independent media happening, and then you see what happens when things really all go to hell. And one of the biggest things that's happening in the very, very early parts of this documentary is Russia is doing this thing where they will designate people as foreign agents. Now, what does that mean, a foreign agent? Well, it sounds like you're selling secrets to the other countries. Well, what they do is they basically, if there's some person, in this case, a lot of times it's these independent news reporters or journalists or podcasters, if the Russian government deems them to be giving information they don't want to getting out, they will basically say, you know what, you're obviously a foreign agent. And it could be something as flimsy as one of these people shares a story on Facebook to a friend of theirs, or posts it in a way that international people could see the story, or reposts a news report from outside of Russia. Anything that they can basically say as an excuse of like, you're obviously disseminating or getting propaganda from outside of Russia, and therefore you're a foreign agent. And once they are basically branded as a foreign agent, anytime they post or do a video or do a written report, any post a photograph, they could post a photograph of their dog, and whatever they do to the public, they have to post this big disclaimer. And it almost looks like the disclaimer we used to get at the beginning of VHS tapes. Do not duplicate this tape for the penalty of the FBI, so on and so forth. Same sort of thing. It's like, this person is a foreign agent, blah, 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 blah. And they essentially have to put that disclaimer on anything that they put out there. And if they don't, it's a beginning excuse of the Russian government getting an ability to basically tell this person that they've broken the law, they defied the law, and therefore that could cause their arrest, it could cause fines, it could cause all kinds of things. And of course, not surprisingly, a lot of these people have at one point been detained, some have been imprisoned. One of the women we follow, one of the reporters at TV Rain, her husband has been in prison He's been in prison for like over a year when we're watching this. Of course, she's freaked out. She's trying to get in contact with him. She can't hear from him. She sends things to him that may or may not ever get to him. And he literally hasn't been charged with anything yet. They have, I guess the law in Russia is they have up to a year and a half to hold you in prison before they even charge you. So of course, she's just waiting for him to be charged, and then everything she does in the whole events of this documentary, she's concerned that if she does something, it might potentially make his sentence longer. And just the fact that she's out there trying to do what she thinks is right, but also worried that it may basically keep her husband in jail longer, it's just a simple little thing for the outsider to view, but that's a huge impact on her life. And each of the women we follow, there's versions of that story in different forms. We see how a protest, or not even a protest, like a vigil for the assassination of a political figure, just appearing to that can get you in jail, and on and on and on. There's just all the things they have to think about when they're trying to do these reports, and just watching their day-to-day life. One of the things that really struck me was, and once again, a lot of the scenes are just them hanging out, having a dinner party, drinking with friends and talking. And the whole time, the documentarian, who's from outside of Russia, who just keeps coming back and meeting up with these people and following them, is just watching them do this stuff. They may be cooking, just talking as friends, sitting in a bar. But there's always this air of impending possibility that at any point they could be arrested, they could be charged with something, some kind of fabricated charge against them could be produced. And they also talk about various people in here at some point or another have had their homes invaded by troops or by police and ransacked and or arrested, or their items seized, this kind of thing. So you get this feeling of it. It's kind of like if you are worrying about at any moment your house might be hit by a flood. At any moment, you have to have your escape plan ready. Well, it's the same sort of thing. Wherever they're at, they always have their escape plan ready. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get our devices if the police come in now? When are the police most likely to come in now? What are they going to look for? How can you hide something if they're going to come in? And when you're saying hiding something, the contraband they're hiding is just factual news reporting. And that's the thing. And once again, that's what happens in an authoritarian regime. Now, I think it's a pretty fascinating and slowly building tension of this movie throughout because you, like I said, you kind of get to know each of their stories and what's facing them so that by the time you get to the fourth and fifth chapter and the Ukrainian war is popped off, you really know the stakes for these people and you know that everything could be coming to an end for them, both in their freedom and in their career. And you're not sure exactly how it's going to play out. And it becomes like a really like a slow speed political thriller in some ways. I think it's a fascinating documentary. Once again, it is not for everyone. It will be way too slow moving and way too full of things that you don't feel like you have to have in a documentary. For a lot of people, it'll be that. But if you want that real full view of the kind of lives of an independent reporter in that particular era of Russia, it's very fascinating and pretty tense by the last third, I would say. Also, it is a fantastic and worrying view into next level authoritarianism and how it creeps up and how it uses quote unquote laws or the redefinition of laws, the redefinition of what is legal to be free speech, and how those things are slowly eroded away, and how most of the world around the people that actually are in the middle of that fight, most of the people around that are oblivious or don't care or just not interested or are apolitical. And seeing that and then looking at our current situation in America, you can definitely see like, oh, we are in, if the Russia that we see in this movie from a few years ago was in level 5 out of 6, we are in level maybe 2 or 3 out of 6. So beware. And I think it's really interesting to see that. I mean, sure, they have a bigger history with the KGB and with communism and Stalinism and all that. They have more of a structure in place to allow that sort of crackdown, but we're getting there. So it's pretty darn fascinating. I was gonna go 4 stars, but for me, I think personally it's 4.5 stars. I think this is 4.5 stars. I think for the average person, this might be tough, but for some people, this is going to be like it is for me, and it's going to be a really, really effective documentary series. It is officially, I think, a full movie, but I would say it's best thought of as a series, and you can get it and consume it easier, I think, in those bite-sized pieces. Take a chapter at a time, watch a chapter a day, and I think that's a way to go through this. Also, you noticed it was called Part 1. It does mention at the very end of this, at the end of each chapter, too, it'll give you quick updates on where each of those people are, just like a TV series or a movie would do. So all the way through, you're getting updates. This is Part 1, and it does mention at the very end of this that Part 2 is coming. And Part 2 is called My Undesirable Friend. Part 2, I think it's called The Exiles. And the term The Exiles will definitely make sense by the end of Part 1. So good stuff. Check it out. Really interesting, very maddening, and worrying if you are at all paying attention to the modern world in America and in general, but in America specifically.